Rewind selector. Rewind selector.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to what is the first of what is going to be many beautiful collaborations between myself and Mash and Drum. Jason Calore joins the Fred Minnick channel on YouTube. I will be on Mash and Drum tomorrow. Jason, how you doing, my brother?
Dude, I'm pumped tonight. How you doing, Fred?
And I'm living the dream. I got to tell you what, you reached out to me a long time ago, but I don't do a very good job of reading into my my Instagram messages, so it only took me a year and a half to respond. I've become a huge fan of yours in the meantime. I love what you've been doing on YouTube. You've been absolutely crushing it. And so it's a great pleasure for me to sit down with you tonight and talk about something we're both very passionate about. But first, I wanted to ask you a few questions because I've never actually got a chance to sit down with you. And and you're a musician. I want to know about your musician background. You're a drummer. Tell me about it.
So I've been playing drums since I was about 12 years old. Started way back when. I grew up in New York. If you don't know, I'm originally from Long Island, and then I was living in Queens for about 13 years before I moved to Ohio, which is where I live now in Columbus. So basically, I just grew up playing, all the way up until high school. Played around with some bands. Once I hit college, I was in a couple bands in college. You'd probably get a kick out of this. First, I was in a band that played just some, straight covers of just some really great classic rock hits. And then I was also in a death metal band where a guy would sing, and we had no idea what the hell he was saying. I just wanted to play fast. So that's what I did. And then as I was, when I moved to Queens, I couldn't play too much because of where I lived. I was in a, small condo with neighbors all around me. So I was just playing at studio. So I became a studio drummer. I was playing with different bands who needed someone to fill in. And now I'm here in Ohio. I'm not playing with anyone here in Ohio, but I still have my kit set up and I play all the time. I actually just played for about 20 minutes before I jumped on with you.
That's awesome. I got to tell you, I'm drummers are they're kind of secretly my favorite musicians because they're the heartbeat of every band. So I'm always really impressed with someone who can, keep the beat and keep a band together. But, you've kind of been doing that in the whiskey world too. You've kind of been like a little bit of a the heartbeat of the whiskey tube community here on YouTube. And I'm still new to YouTube, but I've really admired what you've done. And how did you get into whiskey? What was the big moment for you?
Well, for those people that watch me, they know it was actually a bottle of Booker's bourbon. And unfortunately, I didn't know enough to know what batch it was back in the day, but it was about maybe, 5 years after college. I'm 43, so it's been a while. I went to a bar, and at that time, I was still drinking. I was sipping some bourbon. I was, drinking some Turkey 101s and Coke and trying it neat and, exploring in that sense, but never really – I really didn't know that the barrel-proof, non-chill filtered, all that stuff existed. I didn't know enough about it yet. Just, excuse me, I just wasn't educated enough. So I went to a bar, and this pretty bartender's like, "Hey, have you ever tried Booker's?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "No." So she poured us a glass, and as soon as I took a sip of that stuff, I was floored. Never tasted anything like that. There's so much flavor, being uncut. I never experienced a bourbon that was so viscous and creamy. and that just pretty much launched me. Then after that, I wanted to try everything. And then I started watching other YouTubers. And then when I moved here to Ohio, I didn't really know anybody. My family is mostly in New York and Florida and stuff like that. So I decided, hey, I'm really into the history like you are. So that's what really kind of guided me to make the channel, because there wasn't a lot of channels talking about the history of the bourbon and who made it. So that's where I wanted to differentiate myself a little bit with my channel. I wanted to talk about the bourbon, who makes it, where it's from, the people behind it. There's so many amazing stories in the world of whiskey, some true. As you know, a lot of it is probably untrue. But, there's just there was that romanticism about it that really drove me.
Yeah, the romanticism, it's how a lot of us get into it. When I was coming up, Chuck Cowdery kind of took me by the shoulder and kind of told me a very similar story. And it is true. Like, there's a lot of Americana to whiskey. There's also a lot of bullshit. And, early in my career, I just basically just teed off on the bullshit and was calling people out. And, and one of my book, Bourbon Curious, basically revealed everybody's like mash bills. And when I saw you, like, and I agree with you, like, YouTube, I think YouTube is an incredible forum for learning whiskey. And when I saw you applying, some of the same stuff that I did 10, 15 years ago as a writer, I was like, I like this guy. But it was when you did a blind tasting of something that I did, and I was just like, I like it. So here we are all this time later. It's a pleasure to do this. And of course, we're going to be on your channel tomorrow at 9.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Fred's going to be on. We'll be talking some more bourbon, and I'm sure we'll figure out some more stuff to talk about. But yeah, I can't wait to have you on the show tomorrow. It's going to be epic.
I am stoked. And I'm really excited. Everybody, I got to show Jason a new piece of technology that I've been using for the last year, and he tried it for 5 minutes. He was like, "Oh, I love it." So I was like, I felt like I just gave back, to the YouTube community in some way. So
actually, it works a lot better with the nicer camera. So I'm definitely going to be using it. So yeah, it's awesome.
So the subject tonight is highly underrated bourbons, and we were texting earlier. Holy crap! We got to a high number really quickly. How many did you end up with? I got to count.
I pulled off. I think I told you originally like 20, but when I went back to count, I have a total of like 22 whiskeys.
All right, I've got.
And they're not all regulated to bourbon. There's a mix in there.
Oh, okay. So I largely stuck to bourbon. I don't think I have any barrel finishes in here. I don't have any ryes. Yeah, I think I just got all straight bourbon. I've got some unique bourbons. I got a lot of bourbons from outside of Kentucky.
I have a couple. I have a couple of those too. Yep.
So, and I see we have some of the distillers actually who are in my list. By the way, you've got a lot of nice comments coming in. I don't know. Can you see the comments on your side?
I'm actually looking at. Yeah, I'm viewing them on another monitor, and everybody in the chat, what's up? So glad you guys are hanging out. That's nice. It's awesome.
By the way, I want to do a special call out to ADHD Whiskey. I was having a really good conversation with a dear friend of mine, Peggy No Stevens, who was a judge in the competition that he won, and she just talked about what a pleasant person he was and what a great human being he was. I was like, yeah, he comes off that way. He's a really, really sweet fella. So
we love Matt. I mean, we've known him since the beginning. He just has a very honest and hysterical way about him, and it was actually pretty funny when he was doing the online version. It was the semifinals or whatever it was before he got to the finals. It was online. Obviously because of COVID and everything, and everybody was in different locations. He was going through the tasting notes and everything, and the entire chat room was all of, everyone who knows him just saying Matt, like it's all about Matt. And the girl that was hosting it was like, I think the chat is getting spammed. There seems to be a lot of fans for Matt. We're like, nope, it's not getting spammed. That's actually us rooting for Matt.
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was awesome. Mm-hmm.
But everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. As you know how it goes with YouTube, we want to get as many people as we possibly can going in here. We got 338 right now. Let's get that number up to 600, 700, and it helps if you mash that like button. So if you haven't hit the like button, do that for us now. And Jason, I think what the best way for us to do it, we can't taste all of these, and I think there's going to be some crossover. I will go ahead and start. I think one of the most underrated bourbons that are out there is one that I picked as my best non-Kentucky bourbon, and that's Lee W. Sinclair from Spirits of French Lick. It's a 4-grain. This happens to be a barrel pick from one of the best barrel pickers in the business, Marciano's. I think he's out of Mississippi. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just always email Jamie. I don't know actually where he's from. Thank you, Stanley, for the super chat. He says he loved the interview with Scott Ian of Anthrax, his favorite band.
Mm-hmm.
That was an epic interview. By the way, he's a huge bourbon nerd, and that was a lot of fun. And his favorite bourbon in the tasting that we did was Spirits of French Lick too. So very cool.
Yeah, I've been hearing you talk about that one, and I have to try to get my hands on one of those bottles because it sounds amazing.
And here's the deal: is like when we say it's like underrated, that means it's underrated to us. So even though we really like it and you've seen it out there, that may not necessarily mean we feel like it's getting the love it necessarily deserves. And I think Spirits of French Lick to me is one of those bourbons that's of the future. In fact, I'm going to pour myself a little bit more. Off to you, Jason. What's your first one on the board?
All right, so I'm going to go outside of Kentucky as well, and I'm going to hit you with Iron Root Harbinger.
Oh, I got that on there too.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I got the sample bottle. I don't have the full blown bottle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm behind on my Iron Root tastings, and so I don't have a full bottle. I got to taste a sample one. But that's awesome. Great one. Great pick.
I mean, Iron Root. It just won. Best bourbon in the world somewhere. I forgot where exactly it won, but I've gotten the chance to try a bunch of Iron Root products, and I still think people may shy away from it because it's a Texas bourbon. But I'm telling you, what these guys are doing, using French style distillation, using different types of heirloom grains with different types of corn. It's amazing. They're using purple corn, bloody butcher corn, different types of yellow corn, anything you could think of. That's just pulling different flavors and textures for the whiskey. This is easily one of my favorite Texas distilleries, and it's easily become one of my favorite distilleries outside of Kentucky, hands down.
I think that's a great choice. I visited that distillery when they were first opening up. Actually, it had been opening up for like a year or two, and I remember visiting with the mom and talking about all the risk and everything that there was associated with it. And there was very much, I want to say this was, Robert, I know you're in here, but I want to say that was 2015, maybe 2016. But this was very much a time when people were still very they weren't sold on whiskey outside of Kentucky. So there's still people today, and you probably know a couple. There's still people I talk to that believe that it's not bourbon unless it's made in Kentucky. You have those people. Have I ever told you the story? I was given this talk at the Kentucky Derby Museum. This is I would host these tastings, and it was at that point where I talked about how bourbon doesn't have to be made in Kentucky. It can be anywhere in the United States. And I talked about the 1964 Congressional Declaration. And this old lady comes walking up with a cane. And she points her finger in my chest. You better get your facts straight, boy. Bourbon has to be made in Kentucky. And there you go. I about got my ass whooped by like an 85-year-old woman with a cane. Yeah, that's all you can do is just sit there and get you got to take that. You can't fight back. So that's exactly right. You don't want to fight. You don't want to fight. You don't want to be the guy fighting an 85-year-old woman over the meaning of bourbon. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stay in the state of Texas. Another Texas one. Here we go. TX Bourbon. So they just the distiller here just came out with a book. It's about whiskey terroir. When I tasted this cask strength, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I put it in some blind tastings, and it's done really, really well. But you know, I just think that this is underrated. I think it probably could. I don't know. I don't dig the packaging. I think that sometimes when you have a bad bottle, it can like really throw off like people's opinion.
I agree. It definitely a bottle design could definitely make or break a whiskey.
I mean, when I see TX, I mean, I don't know. I just doesn't do it for me. I want to. Maybe it's because I grew up in Oklahoma and I just have a natural prejudice against Texas. I don't know, but
oh, there you go.
Yeah, but I came through. But this one, you know, to me, it's real jammy. It's got a lot of really developed like fruit flavors for like such a young cask strength bourbon, and I just think that they did an outstanding job with it.
I have to try that one. Iron Root and Balcones have become probably my favorite go-tos, as well as let's see, Still Austin. There's great Texas whiskey as well. There's just a lot of great whiskey coming out of Texas, but I feel like it's its own flavor profile. You know, it's like you look at the world of Scotch in Scotland, how you have Islay whiskey, you have Speyside, sweet, and then smoky. I think the same thing is happening here across the country in the U.S. You have your sweet and your typical bourbon notes coming out of Kentucky. Some, non-typical as well, but, the bourbon that most people know and love. And then you have these regions like out in the West Coast in California from Woodinville and distilleries like that. And then Texas, there's a rawness to them, but it's also, it's just a very signature flavor profile. And I love that.
We started seeing the change really when the smaller distillers realized that they weren't going to put food on the table by just finishing it in an additional barrel. I mean, there was the barrel finish trend was, I mean, it's happening now, but it was happening in a gross, like haphazard way, 6 years ago. And they were just taking bad distillate, finishing it in the barrel, thinking the port would clean it up. But when they started really focusing on fermentation and specifically like heirloom grains, that's where I really saw the difference. And we bring up, I brought up Spirits of French Lake. We both brought up Iron Root, and we're looking at distilleries that focused on the grains. And the distillers I have noticed who have focused on the grains are the ones that we're talking about right now.
Absolutely. I think it's a perfect match of the blending of the grains and also the type of distillation they're doing. You distill slow distillation. The great Nancy Fraley had a huge hand in what Iron Root's doing, and it shows in the bottle. It's a great whiskey.
What is your number two?
All right, so I'm gonna go with a bourbon out of Indiana. I know you guys are probably figuring MGP, and it is MGP. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because it still blows my mind on people that buy these crazy MGP store picks or single barrels for, you see them on secondary for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. When you have great whiskeys from MGP directly, like Remus, the Remus series. These have become staples in my whiskey room. You have the regular George Remus Reserve. The straight bourbon whiskey. And you were talking about labels. This is a label that could obviously put some people off, I think, this label itself for the Remus. This is a 94 proof, non-chill filtered MGP bourbon, usually around 6 to 8 years old. It's delicious stuff. And they're starting to do barrel picks of this at full proof. Then you have the Remus Repeal Reserve, which is a blending of different high rye bourbons. You have 11, 12 years old, 9 years old, all blended together to make something just delicious. I'm a huge, huge fan of these. I know they're not distributed everywhere just yet, but there's no need to go paying for $400 12-year, barrel picks from a NDP when it's sitting on the shelf, 11, 12-year-old bourbon for $80.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Repeal Reserve that was in my top 10 this year. I love the hell out of it. That stuff is amazing. And I mean, you're spot on, but I don't know why. When MGP, so the business model of that distillery, it was previously, previously Seagram's Distillery acquired by Pernod Ricard, and then spun off into to a company called LDI, which is owned by Angostura, the Angostura Bitters Company, CL Financial, the parent company of Angostura, and they were going bankrupt, so they sold it to MGP. And when the business model up until MGP was basically to either ship their bourbon off to be blended into Canada, or to sell off the individual stocks to private bottlers like Templeton and Redemption and Bullet. And MGP, a few years ago, decided to come out with their own brands, and they acquired a little bitty tiny NDP out of Cincinnati called Remus. And it was named after the famous bootlegger, which, a lot of people get up in arms about that. But, this guy actually knew his whiskey. He actually traded whiskey. The real George Remus traded whiskey with Pappy Van Winkle and Brown Foreman. I mean, he was a real whiskey guy, in addition to killing people and, being a part of all kinds of mafia stuff.
An amazing story with him.
It really is.
I love the whole story of how he basically let the guy in jail that he was sharing a cell with know that he left all of his assets to his wife Imogen, and this guy ended up working for the law enforcement. He left and started a relationship with Imogen, tried to get Remus deported, tried to get him killed, and then lo and behold, Remus gets out, has his wife killed, and then ends up going back to jail for that and pleads insanity, which is didn't he invent the whole plead insanity?
Swell guy. Swell guy.
I mean, he was a gem.
They depicted him perfectly in Boardwalk Empire. I don't know if you saw that. Absolutely. He was like, Remus doesn't like this idea. Remus. Yep. I mean, they depicted it perfectly.
Totally.
I mean, but so MGP comes out with this. They acquire this brand. They come out with a couple others. They tried to do a thing with Greg Metz. They called it Metz Medley. I got a bottle in here somewhere.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah.
And it didn't pan out, and Greg left. But they've struggled to be their own brand identity. And so some of that stuff of you're talking about people going gaga over these barrel picks has to do with the culture of that facility has never been about their own brands. And I feel like there's a little bit of they're afraid to market themselves, or they're afraid to push themselves out there because they'll lose some of those bigger clients. I mean, I don't know. It's a very weird dynamic they have there. But
so that's actually a question. That's actually a question I had for you. That's actually a question I had for you about this brand. If you think, in your opinion, if they came out, if they stripped the Remus, if they never named it after the so-called king of bootleggers, and if they just labeled it with a big gold MGP on the front, MGP bourbon, how do you think that would go over with consumers? Do you think that would sell more or less? Or is that something MGP wouldn't do? Because I've always wondered it.
I think it would be better. Yeah. I mean, I do. And I just don't think the name Remus, I mean, it's a cool backstory, but it's just not enough brand recognition in today's environment. And they also tried to launch it when we were kind of tired of backstories. The backstory movement's making a pretty big comeback, but it's just not, it doesn't resonate. If it's not resonating with the people who are willing to pay more for an MGP product, because MGP liquid, you tell me that I'm able to get a 12-year-old, which I have, I got a 12-year-old barrel pick from Boone County with my cigar club.
Yep.
I chose that over a Weller barrel. I chose that over a Russell's Reserve barrel. Hopefully, Rare Bird is not watching tonight, because I just said that I chose something over Wild Turkey. But the fact is, the sweet spot for MGP is 8 to 14 years old. And if you get an opportunity to get a 12-year-old barrel, buy it. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Incredible.
It's delicious. I mean, I chose this. This is an 11 and 12. This is batch 3 of the Remus. I mean, this beat out some, some stalwart hitters of bourbons that we all know
great.
and love. And yeah, it's delicious. I mean, 11, 12-year-old MGP for $80. I'm taking that all day.
Yeah, I mean it is baffling how they have that. Oh, Rare Bird is watching. He says
he's unsubscribing.
He's unsubscribing right now. Well, shit. So I'll go ahead and pick up what my this might get back in good graces here. Okay. Although we are always talking about it, it's always in my in like contention for my best every day. Rare breed. I love this stuff. Love it.
I'm throwing a Russell's Reserve single barrel on the table because this is another turkey product. I don't think. Well, I think the picks get talked about a lot, but I think just as a straight up on the shelfer, I see all those Blanton's horsey chasers out there trying to collect the horsies. 93 proof bourbon. When you have a beautiful 110 proof non-chill filtered 8 to 9 year single barrel from Wild Turkey sitting on the shelf, and I'll take this all day over any Blanton's any day of the week.
By God. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're not going to see me getting too enthusiastic about Blanton's. I will say that I do get very excited about Blanton's when it comes to charity because it raises a lot of money. And that's where you'll see me get really excited about Blanton's and we have Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews comes in, says cheers to two legends. It's about time this collaboration happened. Listen, I apologize, Jason. It took me a long time, but it also took me a long time to figure out my lights and how to set up a camera and all that shit. So.
Hey, you're a busy guy. No worries. It's happening now. It's a good way to kick off 2021, sir.
Hell yeah, it is. I just poured a little bit of that Rare breed. Man.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think when it comes to story and the respect, I do respect that about Blanton's. I respect what it means to, just the history of bourbon being, supposedly the first single barrel that was ever kind of created. In a time when bourbon was kind of losing its way or had already lost its way. That's when kind of Booker No came in, did, Booker's, and it was an exciting time for bourbon. All these new brands were coming out. And then you have, Blanton's that came along. And as much as I respect Blanton's, I think I respect Blanton's and like Blanton's. It's the Blanton's chasers that have made me not like it.
I'm with you on that. I think that's where most of us stand. And by the way, if I could get the bottle for $45, $50, I mean, I'd be really happy. I also used to buy Weller 12-year-old for $21. So, and I realize that, I'm a part of the problem, the whole like whiskey media and everything that's a part of it, but I'm not going to apologize for getting to drink whiskey for a living. And I will say that it is really interesting to see what people get excited about, because I'm going to, like, we're talking about Buffalo Trace right now. I'm going to the stepchild in the Sazerac portfolio, and that's 1792 bottled in bond. I'm telling you, this outtastes Blanton's. This will outtaste.
I pulled the 1792 out as well.
Right on. See, this is like really great every day. You can find it, bourbon, and people don't get up on the hype train with it. They don't get all crazy. We just crossed 500, Jason. Woohoo! So 500.
There you go, baby.
In the chat. Keep it up, everybody.
Keep it going. I'm gonna have a water break. Water.
Yeah, I'm club soda. I'm club soda guy. Try to keep my palate fresh. Club soda helps my palate.
Nice. Yeah, come on, guys. Smash the like button. Only 189. Keep it going. Yeah, I agree. 1792, one of those brands that it's always there. I will say it's a spicier bourbon, where I'm not sure if people like that as much, especially the small batch. But like you had that, once you get up to that bottled and bond, I think 1792 is beautiful at 100 proof.
Yeah, it really is. And to me, this is also, by the way, this is also a distillery that was really kind of created in the same vein that MGP is. In the 60s, it was a sourced whiskey purveyor, and they supplied a lot of whiskey for distilleries, and that kept being the case. And so when you see Kentucky straight bourbon from an NDP, it is typically it's typically from Barton. But because, in fact, that will be where is it? One of my next underrated ones. This is the private label for Kroger. It's called Stonehammer. It is Barton. It's some of the best Barton liquid that's been put into bottles and on shelves, and you can find it at all the participating Krogers. And it was picked out by then master distiller, who is now with Bardstown Bourbon Company. So it is John Hargrove. So you have these barrels were picked by him, and it is absolutely excellent.
How come Mike Kroger here doesn't have that? What the hell?
Well, you're in Ohio. I mean, Ohio's kind of rough on the bourbon love.
Yeah. So Ohio has an interesting mix because we get the prices are great because they're all retail, but we also get everything a little bit later depending on what it is. Mm-hmm. And most stuff that comes in that's either highly allocated or bourbon brands that are wanted, like Blanton's and even stuff like Eagle Rare. I mean, it's like drip dropped throughout, and these guys, they're lining up, they know exactly where to go. So it's interesting trying to find some bourbons here, but
now
you kind of connect with a network of, friends here, and
right.
You just go hunting.
Now I know, like every year they will come out with a list of like returning to like the distillers, and it'll be like a hefty list. Like they'll have things like Booker's on there and Weller, and it's like why are you all returning now? Why can't you sell it? Like it's weird.
Yeah, it goes to the kind of like the last call store. So basically anything that gets delisted in the state goes to a last call store, and you can get a lot of really good whiskeys for cut in half for prices. But you just have to know when stuff is dropping and when it's going to end up there, because people do line up there too when there's a big release. So I'm going to go to my next one. Pabst Blue Ribbon Whiskey. And I'm only kidding, guys.
About had a coronary.
Yeah, you all right, Fred?
I may not make it through this.
I almost killed Fred Minnick. Yeah, so this actually came in. This is what Ohio got last week, and I got it. I was just too effing curious about it, man. This is the one that hit the barrel for like an hour or something like that. It literally says in the top corner here, aged 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Yeah. Oh, yep. Fuck those guys.
And then, but have you seen the mash bill? It's a pretty interesting mash bill. It's a 4-grain mash bill. 52 corn, 27 barley, 17 wheat, 4% rye.
Yeah.
It's watered down to 80 proof, and it tastes like fruit candy. It's terrible.
Bless your heart for tasting it.
All right, next one up is for me. I'm going to go with, let's see here. Oh, I got a few down here. What am I going to pull out? I'm actually going to go with, I'm going to go with this one right here, and it's Bell Mead.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not sure if this is considered underrated. I know the Bell Mead special releases. We're talking about the Honey Barrel. We're talking about some of the other finishes they do have a huge following, but just the regular cask strength reserve. Now I do know they switched them up now. They're 108 proof across the board. They don't vary in proof points anymore. They wanted to do that to try to maintain some flavor consistency. But I think this stuff, again, we're talking about another MGP product, but it is a proprietary mash bill, if I'm not mistaken, and it's delicious stuff.
Yeah, now that they're kind of moving on to, a lot of their whiskeys. I mean, I don't know if you've had a chance to taste any of their their Tennessee whiskey, but Jason, it's good. I mean,
Yeah.
and they've got a pretty interesting Lincoln County process. It's quite a bit slower than Jack. So I feel like it's they're definitely a distillery to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think their younger stuff, their Tennessee whiskey, I mean, it does taste a little bit young, but you know more than anyone, you can taste the, you could almost taste like how good it could be once that stuff gets a little bit older.
Yeah, the things you don't want to taste at the young stage are like turpentine, armpits, sweaty gym socks.
Yeah, socks. Yeah, I was going to say gym socks. Yeah,
dead cats.
Dead cats.
You don't want to smell construction materials like drywall.
My favorite part of Belle Meade is the two horses on the front. Have you heard? You've probably heard the story of those two horses, right?
Yeah, there are a couple of studs that are like all the lines are like connected to, like so many Kentucky Derby horses are connected to them.
Yeah. So the one on the right is Bonnie Scotland. Bonnie Scotland, but the one on the left is, you said it. What's the name of it?
Is it Brown Dick?
Yeah, it's Brown Dick.
Brown Dick. So
when the Nelson brothers redid the labels and stuff, they decided to take the names off the label because they were originally on the label, and I don't think they wanted Brown Dick on their label. It was pretty epic.
Well, they did some polling and learned that Brown Dick does not do well in ages 45 to 65.
Did some polling. Yeah, polling. Yeah, but I'm a huge fan of Belle Meade. I love their cognac finished bourbon as well. But yeah, just the regular cask strength reserve is just a delicious sipper. $50-$60 you could find them for. Just great stuff.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of them, and in full transparency, I consider Charles and Andy to be very good friends, and Charles is getting married soon. So,
is he? That's great.
Yeah, very excited for him. They've been dating for a long time. I think it was one of those where she was just like,
Yeah, Charlie and Andy have a very interesting. They have a very cool partnership. Like you could just tell, one's about the marketing, one's about the distillation, and they work very well together.
Who wins in a fight? That's what I want. I want to know from you. Who wins in a fight, Charlie or Andy?
I don't know. I feel like Andy might be stronger because he's in the trenches distilling, while Charlie gets to lead a good life and fly around America and sell his whiskey.
I feel like Charlie has more like muscle mass, and like if he lands the right punch, Andy's screwed. But Andy can outlast him because, like you said, he's in the trenches. He's working out all the time. He ain't got no flab. He's ready to go. But
that's right.
So here's my next one. I'm going to move on over to Virginia. I happen to love walnuts, and Filibuster is a distillery in Virginia that is producing some walnut bombs. I did a barrel pick with them, and it was just like a chocolate-covered walnut. Now, how are they getting that? To be honest with you, I can't really tell you, but we talked, we talked about the differences of terroir and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think this is one of those aspects where we might see that, because you do see water in those areas yield something different. And while everyone goes through reverse osmosis, there's got to be something said for the basic climate and the natural microclimate right there on them with those barrels. And I feel like that what's happening there in Virginia is extracting, some compounds in the barrels that's not happening in Kentucky. And you're getting a much nuttier flavor profile. So if you haven't had them yet, Filibuster out of Virginia is one that's very underrated. But I think you really do have to be a walnut fan to appreciate them. I think some people will get this and be like, bah, I don't like it. But if you like walnuts, go for it.
That's an interesting one. I don't think I've come across that one just yet. Next one for me. Everybody knows I love this whiskey, this bourbon, I should say, and it's Cooper's Craft.
Oh, yeah. That was in your, you threw that in your best everyday taste off.
I did. Cooper's Craft 100 proof. It's a Brown-Forman product. I'm not sure the age of this stuff. I know the barrels are chiseled and charred on the inside to make it seem a little bit, I think, probably older than it is. But it's got that beautiful Brown-Forman, that type of flavor profile. There's a lot of oak. There's some spice, a lot of cinnamon, some baking spices mixed in here. Maybe the slightest hint of banana, but not too much. This became my new, along with like Wild Turkey 101 and a couple of other ones that I go to every day. This was kind of my COVID discovery. I bought a bottle. And it's like $28, and it's an absolute steal of a bourbon. So I know it's not available too much everywhere just yet, but for $28, $30, this bourbon is an absolute hitter. I think a lot of people overlook it. They don't know what the hell Cooper's Craft is. They don't know that it's made by Brown-Forman, and it's a delicious bourbon.
I'm going to stay in the Brown-Forman family, and I'm going to call out one that I was not as high on when I first rated it, and that's Old Forester 1897, the Bottled and Bond. And I just fell so much in love with Old Forester 1920. I don't think that's any secret with anybody.
Yeah, that's not underrated at all.
It's not underrated. But the Old Forester 1897, I do think is underrated. And, of course, it's Bottled and Bond. And I use this a lot in my private tastings to give me the opportunity to talk about the history of Bottled and Bond. But this also has a very deep molasses kind of flavor, some brown sugar in it. I think it has a lot of flavor in there that you're looking for. Kind of like you said, it's got some of those typical like Brown-Forman notes, just a hint of Bananas Foster in there. And this was actually, to be honest with you, this was my last one to make the cut for the best ones, simply because it's not really that underrated for those who have had it. But just in case you haven't had it, go for it.
I agree with you. I think that Bottled and Bond is underrated, and the only reason why I think it's underrated is the price point.
Mm-hmm.
I just think you have so many Bottled and Bond whiskeys that are, $25 and under that one gets overlooked.
Yeah,
that's at least my theory.
And it's funny because a lot of people are asking questions in the chat, like Joseph oh God, I'm butchering his name.
Joseph. Just call him Joseph Brazzers.
Joseph Brazzers. He's wanting to know about Woodinville, and I'll go ahead and jump ahead. Woodinville's in here.
There you go.
It's so good.
Yeah, Woodinville was in my video today. I posted my top surprises and disappointments of 2020. Woodinville was in there. Fry Ranch was another one I got to try this year that completely blew my socks off as well. Yeah.
So how did Woodinville rate for you? Was it a surprise? Was it a win?
It was a surprise for me. I love the flavor profile of it. It has like this root beer, cream soda, vanilla ice cream thing going on that I absolutely love. I thought it's really unique. I love how they transfer the barrels over the Cascade Mountains to give it some more, when they're aging it on the other side of the mountains, there's some more variable climate to give it some more flavor. Then they, bring it back over and, bottle it. I think it's an amazing story, great operation. I love them.
By the way, I gained 5 pounds when you said root beer ice cream. I just in my head, I'm going home. I'm getting the pecan, the butter pecan out of there. I'm going to find some root beer after this. I'm going to pour that up on a float. I'm going to kick my legs up. And I feel like I'm going to watch The Godfather or something like that. I kind of want to watch,
With a root beer, yeah. So I grew, I'm Italian, 100%. I've never thought of maybe like a salami sandwich I would eat watching The Godfather, but I wouldn't think to have root beer float watching The Godfather.
It's
that
time,
sounds kind of
Jason.
epic.
Do it.
That sounds kind of epic, man. Fred,
So-
if we ever hang out in person, that's what we're doing. We're gonna make some root beer floats and watch The Godfather.
By God. And we will hang out in person. I do get to Columbus. I help a festival there. Well, I used to help a festival there called Rock on the Range.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And I used to do like bourbon tastings with the bands backstage. And yeah, it gets fun and weird. But you know, if that it's now Sonic Temple, but if it comes back, if we come back this year or next year, I'll make sure you get a backstage pass with me.
Absolutely, man. That'd be amazing. Thank you. All right, next one. This one might surprise people because unfortunately the price went up on this, but I wanted to call it out because when it was cheaper, I thought this was an absolute steal on the shelf. It's Bird Dog 10-year. Bird Dog 10-year small batch bourbon.
Interesting.
So this used to be a $35 10-year-old bourbon. And it's actually pretty solid. It's nothing that's going to blow your mind, but I mean, come on, a sub $40 10-year bourbon. Unfortunately, the price went up on this, but this still just sits on shelves. I mean, a 10-year-old bourbon, there's not many 10-year-old I can tell you right now, it's older than Blanton's.
How does Jason buy bourbon? Older than Blanton's? Yes, he's buying.
I'm buying it. Older than Blanton's. Come on. I mean,
So, by the way, I have a backstory for this one. That I wrote a story about them like 2013 when they had a different bottle, and I worked with that company. It wasn't necessarily, and it was like, you know, writing the story. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best experience for me. I mean, this was early. This was early in my career, so actually, it was before 2013, before Whiskey Women came out. So we're between 2008 2010, and I have never really, I've not really gone back to like checking them out. But I'm glad that you did that because, you know, it's time for me to see how they're doing now and taste them. But they were trying to be a flavored whiskey company. They were never going to be like a straight bourbon one. And when they started doing bourbon on the shelf, I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever. But
these are the same guys that are sourcing for Calumet and a couple of those brands. You know, they don't disclose where they're getting the bourbon from, but like I said, at the time...
Yeah, Western Spirits, right?
Yeah, Western Spirits, exactly. Yeah, I mean, at the time when this was a $35 bottle of a 10-year bourbon, and then all of a sudden it shot up because I was told or I read that they wanted to, I guess, brand themselves as a more premium offering for the 10-year, but I still see it on the bottom shelves. And it's weird because it is now about a $50 bourbon. So
I'm just going to clue you in. It's a trade thing. It's a trade thing.
Yeah,
like it is like it's bottom shelf positioning is they're not willing to play the game or something. I don't know, but shelf position is all about the distillery's relationship with the distributor and the distributor's relationship with the brand. But listen, man, if it's hitting your palate, I'm gonna go check it out. I'm gonna go check it out.
Well, like I said, it's not gonna blow you away. I just think for a 10-year-old offering, I just think it has some really nice balanced flavors. Yeah, I mean, people are freaking out in the chat like, Bird Dog, are you serious? Yeah, I am, because again, that's probably one of those bottles you see and you think Bird Dog, you think flavored whiskey, you think there's no way in hell I'm buying that shit. But I'm telling you, for a 10-year-old bourbon that's available at that price, it's not terrible.
So we keep bringing up Blanton's because we're suckers for bitching about Blanton's. Doug Tempest asked a great question in the chat. It's like, what the hell is it about Blanton's? Why is it everybody's, chasing it in the first place if you all think it sucks? So I'll chime in, but I want to hear your thoughts here so we can help Doug become a hater just like us.
Honestly, for me, I think it's the bottle. I think the bottle does it. I think obviously I think Buffalo Trace has a hand in it because a lot of people that chase or get into bourbon in the beginning, they automatically know Buffalo Trace. So I think Blanton's becomes that first pinnacle of bourbon that people want to attain. And I think there's something about the bottle, the handwritten notes, the dump dates, the collectible horsies, the wax. It's got it all. The weird like hand grenade style bottle. I think that all plays into it. I think it's a wonderful, one of the probably the best marketed bourbon, I think, on the planet. It's just, there's nothing else that compares when you look at that bottle, the label, the style, the history behind it. There's just something about it. And plus, the people that really enjoy bourbon, they say, that line that we always love to, fucking say, that you always hear, this bourbon is so smooth. It's because it's mostly, water. Let's be honest. It's 93 proof, guys. And it's Buffalo Trace. It's super sweet. It's watered down to 93 proof. I get it. It's pretty good. But the chase of it, I think it all has to do with the bottle.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I've been pretty vocal about the bottle being very quintessential Kentucky for a while. And it's just when it comes down to it, when I'm buying a gift for someone that says Kentucky and I'm thinking bourbon, I'm not thinking Woodford. I'm not thinking Weller. I actually am thinking Blanton's because of that presentation. And it is so true.
It's so true.
But the fact is the whiskey does not live up to the bottle. And I love all the money it raises for charity. And I love the people who are behind the product. And I know it puts jobs on the table and food on the table for people. But the fact is that Blanton's consistently underwhelms me and other people in blind tastings. But the thing is, when you got the hype, you don't need the type. And by the type, I mean, a written review. And Blanton's has never scored or done better than Maker's Mark for me. It hasn't.
Do you think Blanton's has gotten younger the last couple of years? I know in the beginning when it was, before the real craze hit, it was said to be 7, 8, 9 years old. Do you think it's gotten younger?
By the way, TDTE says Yellow Wolf brought them here. Thank you for that. We now have over 600 in here. That's awesome. Thank you all. My record, I think, is 710. So if we can break that record, I'm buying Jason something really, really nice. A bottle of Blanton's.
By the way, I need an N with the 2 dots.
But if you haven't yet, folks, if you're enjoying this festive evening with us here, this is the Minnick and Mash show, or Mash and Minnick, as you may want to call it. We're going to be on Mash and Drum tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We still got a few bottles to go here, but right now we're bitching about Blanton's, so you have to allow us to continue bitching about it. But it is a great product. But the whiskey does not match up to the bottle. But that being said, if I see it in the store, my arm is still going like that. So even as jaded as I am, as much as I bitch about it, if it's in a particular price range for me, if it's between 50, dare I say $80, I'm probably going to buy it. It's when we see it like 200 that it's over to me. That's where the problem is.
What are your thoughts on the gold and straight from the barrel? Are you happy?
Well, now we're talking about something I like. I like the straight from the barrel. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. The gold, yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not as excited about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the gold. I obviously think it's a step up. I think it's a little bit. It loses some of the sweetness in the gold. The alcohol comes through a little bit more. But the straight from the barrel, I feel like you get full flavor. But unfortunately, they released it in the U.S. and I don't really think anybody ever saw it. Unfortunately. So
I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna pull a bottle up that I'm picking every day of the week and Sunday over Blanton's, and that is OGD 114. OGD 114. Old Granddad 114. Woo-hoo-hoo.
There you go, Fred.
And you got the bottled and bond.
I got the bonded, which I think a lot of people overlook as well.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think the old Granddad 114 is, I mean, that came in third in my everyday tasting.
Yeah, I think it was like third or fourth in mine too. It was amazing how close. It was amazing how close our stuff was.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute hitter. I mean, it's a delicious stuff. The 114, the bonded, I think when it gets to about here, about halfway down the bottle, this is like drinking just like, ever had like orange sherbet or a creamsicle growing up when it's just like orange and vanilla and candy? That's basically what this tastes like, with like a little bit of black pepper on it. It's delicious stuff.
And that's when you start drinking straight from the bottle?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. or when I'm really feeling bougie, I get myself a silly straw. You know?
Oh, a silly straw. I like that.
Couple spirals. You know, it's fun.
One of my favorite things about Old Granddad is that it is named after Basil Hayden. Mm-hmm. So Basil Hayden's grandson was trying to commemorate his grandfather, who was a big part of developing Kentucky, and he was also a distiller. Now he has a brand named after him. But I never feel like people really make the connection that Basil Hayden was the Old Granddad. And so if Basil Hayden knew how bad of a job that Jim Beam was doing with Basil Hayden, he'd knock somebody out. I'm just saying. Wait, Basil Hayden's not on your list, is it? Because
I do not like Basil Hayden.
Yeah, see, this is why we like each other, Jason.
Yeah, Basil. I have an epic rant on Basil Hayden on my overhyped bourbon video that I did.
Oh, yeah. Come to think of it, I did see that. So that is like that's just like bourbon geek 101. Do you think Blanton's is overrated? Yes. Do you like Basil Hayden? No. Okay, welcome to the club. Will you pay $500 for Weller? Yes. Okay, get the fuck out. You're a tater.
Yes, those are the first three questions you ask everyone.
And then you buy drinks.
Yes, and then you buy drinks and you laugh about it later on. Let's see. Do I have any?
Now your turn.
Here? Oh, I'm gonna go with the brand Michter's. I think is it's obviously a phenomenal brand. They make some great whiskeys, but nobody ever really mentions this guy, the Michter's American.
Yeah, well played.
The blue label Michter's American whiskey, which just tastes like, I mean, you're basically drinking vanilla ice cream, a little bit of caramel sauce on it. It's just pure vanilla and caramel syrup in the bottle. Everyone goes on about the 10-year, the toasted, any of those, those more well-known brands within Michter's that people love to chase. But I mean, this blue label is so damn good, and I feel like it flies under the radar, and not many people really go for this one, unfortunately. But it's good.
That's a really good point. I do enjoy that one. It does fly under the radar. Mm-hmm. Michter's. I have a special. Right now, you brought up Michter's. My heart is in a special place right now for Michter's because they just lost their master distiller for a long time, Willie Pratt. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like Willie Pratt ever really got the credit he deserved. He was the guy who basically managed contract distillation at Brown-Forman, and then he moved over to Michter's, and voila, they have a relationship with Brown-Forman, and boom, they've got time on the still at Brown-Forman. And by the way, it's not something that they talk about. But the fact is that Willie Pratt had a great palate, an integral part of developing that company, and he passed away. And I've been in this kind of like weird, I always want to when we lose someone, I always want to cherish them, and I don't feel like I've done a good job with that with Willie. And so, I guess, let me find let's do this, Jason. Let's grab, let me find a bottle of Michter's. I got one. Do you see one over my head or anything? Because it's very awkward looking while I'm still talking to you.
I'm trying to. I don't think I see one right there.
Well, there's the 25-year-old, but it's fucking empty. There's the celebration.
Oh, damn it. Jesus, the
I
25.
I got the celebration right here. That would be
wow.
That would be
pretty epic.
Yeah, I'm trying to cut back on drinking that one.
Yo, I don't blame you. If I had that, that's not a silly straw bourbon.
that is. I mean, but in all honesty, that is one I probably should drink for Willie.
You know what? I'm gonna grab. If we're toasting to Willie, I'm gonna grab my Michter's barrel strength bourbon, which was kind of a. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna grab this one right up here.
All right, everybody. So, do us a favor. If you all have a bottle of Michter's, we're going to toast Willie Pratt right now.
So this is my bottle of. This is my hand poured bottle of the Michter's barrel proof rye that I did at Fort Nelson. At the time, it was the highest proof they ever had for their rye, which is 115.2. So this is kind of a special bottle. I'm gonna break this out for Willie. This is like coffee. It's dark as shit. I love it.
There are people commenting to please don't fall, Jason.
Yeah, I have a kind of a famous video after I did a blind tasting of 3 Elijah Craig barrel proofs, and I fell on my ass getting up from the chair after filming was over while the camera was rolling. I'll show it to you one time.
You did. You showed it to me. I was like, oh man, I always worry about that. So I poured a little 25-year-old for Willie, and folks, this is to give you an idea who Willie Pratt was. He was the first master distiller for Michter's in their new effort, and he was a great guy, had a great palate, and did a lot of things behind the scenes that he never got credit for. Some things that he was not someone that people compared to like Jimmy Russell, and I think that's always unfair when we look at master distillers and what they do. But Jimmy was, or Willie was a damn good whiskey guy. So cheers to Willie. Please toast us all, everybody, for the great Willie Pratt. May he rest in peace.
To Willie Pratt. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's just delicious stuff.
Yeah. Well, I made the mistake of pouring the 25-year-old. I kind of want to move off to the table and move off to the side and be alone.
So in the chat, Keith Schmidt threw a $5 super chat, and he said, what's the consensus about the barrel bourbon Armida? It was in Jason's video today. I was curious to get your thoughts on the Armida.
I did not like it. I found it to be too profound with pear, and found it to be metallic after that, and I didn't like it.
It was one of those. So I put it on my surprise whiskeys this year, or last year, I should say, because I had never tasted anything like it before. When you combine the pear and the Sicilian Amaro casks, I mean, it was just one of the most unique things I've ever tasted. Now, I just think it's just kind of like it's either too sweet. It was right on that border of, do I love it or hate it? I couldn't decide. I kept going back to the bottle to decide if I liked it or not.
Yeah, and by the way, it is great to disagree. It's good to have those, every palate's different. Well, we're very aligned. There's no reason why you should, if you defer and you love it, that's awesome. it to me. It's like it was just all over the place, and it was not coming in for me. And I had and I have very candid conversations with that company, and I scored like one of their ryes one time, like a 72.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? What was it? I was just like, I broke it down for them. They're like, appreciate that, So I think it's something that if you're true to your palate and really what you like,
I agree. I think the first couple pours, I was a little bit taken back, like, what is this? And then I started liking it, but you kind of said it, what I experienced. Once it got about halfway down the bottle, it really became all pear for me. So, yeah for sure.
It looks like Jeff Lawrence in the he gave us a little super chat action.
Nice.
I haven't found a bad Michter's yet. The 10 is most glorious, I found, but American is definitely underrated. Thanks, guys, for this. I say thank you, Jeff Lawrence.
Cheers, Jeff.
But Willie was really an amazing guy, and I know we've still got to get through a few. So, and I know we have some friends who are live streaming now too, so we don't want to be too far away from them. But let's. All right. I think you're next, my friend.
Am I next?
I think so.
All right, I'm gonna go with my next one is John J. Bowman. This is out of Virginia. Single barrel, John J. Bowman, Virginia straight bourbon whiskey. The story goes that this is Buffalo Trace distillate, mash bill 2, so maybe a poor man's Blanton's, that is then brought to Virginia and then distilled in their copper pot stills, and then bottled in Virginia, which is why they could call it a Virginia straight bourbon. So I find this to be just really delicious stuff. I absolutely love it. I love the spiciness that it has. If it is Buffalo Trace, I love that the pot still distillation gives this a little bit of spice and a little bit of a creamy texture on the palate. They have some barrel picks that they've done that I've gotten to try the last couple of years that have been just delicious. Huge fan of John J. Bowman.
Yeah, this is one where people are already coming in and saying, like, no, don't tell people about it. Here's the thing. There's something about this brand that does not resonate with people. So it has won Best Bourbon with the World Whiskey Awards, I think, 2 or 3 times, including a time or two I was a judge on that particular competition. And it doesn't move. It is one of the most bizarre things in all of whiskey that this beautiful, beautiful bourbon out of Virginia that, yes, they have their processes, but it's fucking beautiful and it doesn't move. It'll be in every store. So if you're a fan, I don't think that you have anything to worry about because it doesn't have a horsey top. Let's put it that way.
That's right.
Put it in a horsey top and sign me up there, sir. I need it.
That's what I said, because when I mentioned this in my underrated bourbons, like I got a lot of comments like, don't talk about John J. Bowman. I'm like, dude, it's not going anywhere. I'm like, I am not seeing any sort of slowdown with the horsey chasers. I think you're fine.
All right, so speaking of chasers, but not horsies, more of turkeys, Rare Bird 101 with throwing some super chat action to say too much talk about that's things that aren't turkey. Too much. All right, hold on. I got to read. Too much talk about things not turkey. All right, you're an author now, Rare Bird. We got to work on this. Throwing out $5 to remind everyone, all caps, that wild turkey is all you really need. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, brother. You're not wrong. But we're having some fun tonight.
Hey, then Jeff Lawrence just came and look at that.
I'm not seeing. So in the where is he coming in there? Oh, there he
right
is.
After, yeah, there you go.
Well, it's not loading into the Ecamm Live yet, so I'll go ahead.
Well, I'll read it for you. He did a $50 super chat.
Oh my!
Says, "You guys rock. Love the collaboration. Please do more of this."
I think we can find our way to do it monthly, maybe.
I think that's a thing that could happen.
You know, I got a lot of feedback. People were like complaining about my American Whiskey of the Year, saying, "Man, it's 3 hours long." I was like, "Motherfucker, I tasted 40-something bourbons. What do you want? Do you want me to do that in 5 minutes?" Oh.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know how your palate even lasted that. How it even did that. That's
honestly,
crazy.
I've done it for many years, and there's a process, but I felt it more that time than I ever did at San Francisco. I think it might have been because I didn't have beer afterward. But
so how many bourbons and whiskeys are you trying at San Francisco? Like is it broken up over the course of many days, or is it all one shot?
3-4 days. Yeah,
3-4 days.
You know, now I'm starting my own spirits competition, and it's very, that's all going to be virtual because you don't have, you can't really gather and do stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
we'll see. But I'm also sending out, by flights. But you break it up by flights, and the whole thing with what I'm doing is I'm trying to get it where people are in the right place to taste versus slamming it down their throat at once.
Mm-hmm.
So my next underrated bourbon is Maker's Mark Cash Drink. I think this stuff is absolutely fantastic, and it's just a touch. It's just a touch of what Maker's Mark could be if they would focus on putting out exceptional premium whiskeys instead of volume. I think Maker's, if when the day that Maker's Mark brings out a 12-year-old or 15-year-old bourbon, they're dropping the mic on everybody and walking away. I mean, because I've had it. It's amazing. It's better than everything coming out of Buffalo Trace, but they stick to like doing their 90 proof everyday, pour, because really that's the model of American whiskey is volume. But they have and that's why like I respect Buffalo Trace is their model is like high tier stuff, not necessarily volume. Maker's Mark's model is volume, and but if they wanted to crack open some 12, 15-year-old barrels, maybe let something age for 18, 20 years old, they would own every award.
I was gonna say, how come you never see anything, from Maker's Mark that's in that ultra age category?
Honestly, they're about branding. They're about that wax. They don't believe in age. They believe in taste. That's kind of been their motto. But if you go back to the stuff you taste the stuff from the 1970s, and you throw it right back at him, you're telling me that this stuff right here, it doesn't have some 8-year-old whiskey in it. This doesn't have 9-year-old, 12-year-old. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
So you taste some of that older stuff. It is incredible. Incredible.
So you just had a weeder. I'm going to raise you a weeder.
Tony comes in, says, hey, Fred, watched that in this entirety during quarantine. Much appreciated. He's talking about my live stream. Thank you, Tony. It's always good to be appreciated, Jason.
Love Tony. I'm gonna hit you with some Rebel Yell.
And and I was just telling you, I've been into Billy Idol lately. So.
Mo. Rebel Yell 100 wheated bourbon at a Lux Row. And then you have these new Rebel Yell Distillers collection that are the barrel picks that are still around $30-ish. They're a little bit over 100. This one is 113 proof, and it's delicious. All the people that are chasing Weller and Weller chasers, as well as you could pocket them in there with the horsey chasers from Buffalo Trace. These are great bourbons that just sit on the shelf. Rebel Yell 100, again, it's young. It's not the most complex thing you're going to see, but if you like a good, wheated bourbon, You can go after the Rebel Yell, 100 proof. Just a nice, simple, easy, smooth, weeded bourbon. And then you want something a little bit higher proof. These Rebel Yells picks that are starting to come out are just delicious. So I definitely wanted to mention these.
That's awesome. I'm glad you mentioned that. That was on the outside. That was almost going to make my list, but because I knew that we couldn't be here for 17 hours, I couldn't put everything in here I wanted to. But that is definitely in that kind of like list that I definitely was thinking of. And it Rebel Yell has a fascinating history in that it was a Stitzel-Weller brand. It was like the preferred brand in Kentucky, and the people who worked at Stitzel-Weller. But it was always like the 90 proof gin, So like the other brands, they would be at like they would put it like bottled and bond or 107 proof. So Rebel Yell was kind of like their grand experiment into other into 90 proof, and it really succeeded quite well. And unfortunately, Stitzel-Weller went to shit in the 70s and everything kind of fell through. But I'm thankful Luxro has brought them back in a big way. I've been wondering though, with the social justice movement, when will Rebel Yell have a look at it, and when will they kind of like change that up, because it is
that's a good point. Yeah.
It's about Confederate soldiers,
Yep.
So it's not based on the Billy Idol song. But I'll stay within the family and go David Nicholson, 1843. Now this is the 100 proof, not the Black Label one. So the Black Label one is the Reserve. I don't think the Black Label Reserve is underrated. I think everybody knows about it. I think people are missing out on the White Label because they going back to packaging. It's kind of like Luxco said, "Oh, if we give it a white label and a black label, people will know the difference. You got to do something more." I mean, I don't know. I just feel like this one gets overlooked a lot. It's a very, very underrated one.
I agree. I actually pulled out. Great minds think alike, Fred. I actually pulled out the David Nicholson Reserve. Now, while I don't think this is underrated either. I think it's kind of a shelf staple. You see it in a lot of places. This is one of those bourbons where I think the price hurts it for what you get. I think the 1843, the one that you pulled out, is well worth it more than the Black Label. So I think if you're looking to try a David Nicholson, lean towards the white label rather than the black.
Well, so that was on your list? The black was on your list?
I pulled out the black because I didn't have the white. The white was actually on my list.
All right.
You beat me to it.
Right on. By the way, people are chiming in the chat that they actually have changed. They're dropping the Yale, and it's just going to be Rebel. That I will tell you I did not know. So
on the front of this bottle, it just says Rebel. There's no Yell.
There's no Yell there. Okay.
On the back, though, on the back of the label, it does say Rebel Yell. So I'm not sure if they're going to continue to keep the Yell on the back, but it just says Rebel on the front of the barrel pick.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to. I mean, this is a larger conversation, but it's a much larger conversation. But it just popped in my head at the moment. But I did not know of the label change.
For sure.
So that was mine. What's your next one?
I'm gonna go with Noah's Mill for my next one. It's a Willet brand. I don't feel like anyone ever talks about. You have Rowan's Creek, and you have Noah's Mill, two of the more available Willet offerings, along with Johnny Drum. It's one of those bottles that if you love, so I find that people that love Beam, the Jim Beam profile, love Noah's Mill, because this is like drinking straight like peanut butter cup. It's very peanut forward. It's sweet. I just don't think a lot of people, when I see a liquor store that does have Noah's Mill, this is always sitting there. It's 114.3 proof. It's a great proof point. I really like this bourbon. It's become more of a mood pour for me though, because of that heavy peanut that I get on this one. But I think it's a great solid bourbon, and one that definitely gets overlooked.
Well, I'm with you. You called out the peanut note. Like, I just like that. To me, that's the quintessential Willet distillation note. And
absolutely, yeah.
And when I was looking at all of the Willet brands, I am in that kind of camp where I don't know if they're underrated. And the distribution on them is a little bit more sparse, but Noah's Mill would be the one I would pick. It would be the one I would pick.
I think as far as people that love bourbon, they know about Noah's Mill.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
It's people outside of that bubble that, again, I talked to liquor store owners, a few stores in New York, and they say that Noah's Mill just sits on the shelf. They really don't move it, and it's amazing to me.
Well, back in the day when it used to be a 15-year-old,
my God,
giddy up.
I can only imagine.
Next one, I'm going to go to a neighbor to Willet in Heaven Hill. I've got a couple of Heaven Hill products here, but I'll start with JTS Brown Bottled and Bond.
Oh my God, it's so good.
This is great everyday bourbon. In fact, when you have that everyday bourbon conversation, a good chunk of them are Heaven Hill, and JTS Brown is up there. Fantastic. And don't worry, anybody, it's not going to go allocated all of a sudden. It's just because it's so low on the shelf that it won't move the needle with people going in to buy gifts. So this is one where those in the know.
That's right. I mean, I would put T.W. Samuel's Bottled and Bond up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good, affordable Bottled and Bond bourbon.
J.W. Band or J.W. Dan, Evan Williams Bottled and Bond. I mean, there's so many.
Tom Moore, which is not talked about too much either, but I don't think that's really available in too many places. Named after the original founder of 1792. My next one is actually Ancient Age.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right. A Buffalo Trace product made this list because this. I think the secret's out on the 10-star. It's not the old ancient age that people love.
I honestly, I'll be honest with you, Jason. I can't keep up with whether 10 stars in or it's out or what year. I mean, I stopped tracking this brand because they changed so much shit on it. And
I agree, dude. I don't know what I'm not sure what's in this bottle, but it's definitely not a bad bourbon. I buy these 1.75s and they are great for cocktails, for easy sipping. I mean, it's probably the only Buffalo Trace product I would ever put on an underrated or like a value type bourbon list.
By the way, one of my YouTube members, Danny Lyon, commented, "Can't get it in Connecticut." I mean, I think he just has like a copy and paste or like an automatic like a paste program. Can't get it in Connecticut because that's every time something comes up, he's like, "Can't get it," and then you look at his bar, he's got everything. I love it.
Yeah,
love you, Danny. So I'm gonna go next. You brought up MGP.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go MGP from Old Scout.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And here's the thing: is that these guys were doing like incredible barrel picks. 10, 12, 13, 14, 8 years, that's they were doing all these incredible barrel picks And now, they're getting back to rebottling 5-year-old MGP. And they do a blend of theirs and MGPs as well called Contradiction. But I think Old Scout is a good, affordable 5-year-old MGP. Quite tasty. Go get it.
Yeah. I think so. I have ones that I'm not sure if they're underrated. Well, maybe they are. Maybe they're just undervalued a little bit because I think for what you get and how available they are, because there's other versions of these, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's the Knob Creek 9 years.
Oh.
Knob Creek 9 small batch bourbon. This is a 9-year-old bourbon that's on the shelf for $35.
Yeah.
And as much as now we know about it,
mm-hmm.
we know how good of a value it is, but new bourbon drinkers, again, they walk right by this. They think Knob Creek is
Let's go. I mean, I think we're coming to a theme here. I'm looking at that bottle. I'm looking at that bottle, and it looks like an intern from Target made it, And I think we're getting I think that a lot of these conversations we have about people who are like new to whiskey not seeing it, I think it comes down to the fact that the bottle's not doing it for them,
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. And this is the newest label design. They brought back the 9-year age statement,
which is great. Love that.
Which is great. Obviously, bourbon nerds, we love age statements. We know exactly what's in this bottle. The single barrel reserve, obviously, we all know about the amazing store picks that Knob Creek puts out, that are still about 40 to 45 to $50 that are, could be up to those 15 years old. We're not sure how much we're going to see more of that with all these, 15-year-old beam, source bourbons coming out, and also these special releases that they have. But these are just absolute monsters that sit on the shelf. $45 for the 9-year single barrel at 120 proof bourbon. And then you have a Knob Creek 9, which is a 100 proof 9-year for $35. I mean, it boggles my mind how many new bourbon drinkers do not even look at these. They walk right by it, and they just want to know where the Blantons and the Buffalo Trace is. And it's amazing.
Yeah. It is. It's a study. It's a study of psychology. This is a different brand, but to me, this is neck and neck with that same conversation we just had about Knob Creek. But I think Bullet Blender Select is just fantastic. It was in my whiskeys of the year for a reason. It's so complicated. Now, Bullet doesn't tell you a whole lot about the stocks they have. That's a Diageo MO. I mean, trying to get information out of them on their whiskey, like, well, it's really smooth and it has hints of grapefruit and a touch of apple pie.
I love getting grapefruit in my whiskey. Honestly, no, I don't at all.
But Ebony Majors is a rock star blender. I'm telling you, in 10 years from now, she's going to be probably in the Bourbon Hall of Fame. I think she is fantastic. This is a great, great, great bourbon, and it is sitting everywhere right now.
That was on my surprise whiskey of the year list today.
Oh, right on, man. Right on.
Yeah. I called out Ebony Major, thought it was a fantastic blend. It's one of those where I wasn't crazy about it at first. The more I sipped it, the more I went back to it. Ended up buying like 2 or 3 bottles of the stuff.
Right on, man.
Yep.
I love how we jail. I love that.
Yeah, right?
So what's next for you?
I'm actually going to go with a local bourbon here in Ohio that I think is actually pretty damn good. And it's Tom's Foolery Bonded Bourbon. Oh,
I love them.
You know all about Tom's Foolery, don't you?
Yeah, I love them.
Yes.
They had the original Michter still. They're just great people.
Absolutely. Amazing people. They have the original Michters, pot still. They They're still doing this by pot still, 100 proof. They grow some of their own grain. They also source some other grain to make their bourbon. They do everything the right way, the way you want it. Pot still distillation because they feel pot stills were used, in the 1800s, and they want to kind of keep it. They want to keep it to that tradition. So this is a bonded bourbon that's, because it's a pot still, it's very mouth coating, very creamy. It's one of those that I do think gets overlooked a little bit because, like we said, there are so many damn good bottled and bond bourbons on the shelf that are big producers. But this one,
I don't think it would. I don't think it would get overlooked if it had the distribution and had. I just think they're small and they don't get out there.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes me think like I should make them my whiskey put them in my whiskey club for like a barrel pick if I can pull that off. But I'll say this: the best thing that's coming out of there is like some of their brandies too. If you had some of their brandies out of the cask, incredible.
Yeah, they're doing all French style distillation. I mean, it's amazing what they're doing. Love it. The stuff that they're using to make their brand. I mean, they're growing that stuff on their own. They're not, sourcing. They're all growing that on their own farm. I mean, it's a really great operation. Love time. Hey, if you get a chance to you want to collaborate on doing a pick with them or something, I think that'd be phenomenal.
Oh, hell yeah. So Jason Lifford asked a great question of like, who are the most promising new distilleries in our opinion? Now you're actually you have one in your hand. I'm going to put one in my hand right now, and that's Chattanooga out of Tennessee. Chattanooga is doing great stuff. They're really big into malting. When they first told me their concept, I was like, "You guys are fucking smoking crack. Ain't no way all that malt gonna taste good."
You cannot question a man named Grant McCracken.
Yeah. Ain't no questioning that.
You can't question it. You can't.
But then, then like a couple years later, and they had some very public like legal things, and they got through that. But man, right now they're sitting pretty. Their whiskey's good. We talk about this. We talk about the terroir. I think the elevation that they have in Chattanooga can really be something special. Something that I noticed first with like Smooth Ambler, who has that higher elevation, and that whiskey would penetrate those barrels a little deeper. They would start leaking a little bit. More oxygen was going into the barrels, and more than they were like MGP. And so like I'm like, hey, let's take all that MGP distillate and age it at Smooth Ambler, because what's happening at Smooth Ambler ain't happening anywhere else. And that's why those beautiful like barrel picks from so many years ago were so awesome, because they had a 6 months, a year in West Virginia. I think the same thing is happening in Chattanooga. It's all that elevation is getting more penetration into the wood, and this is definitely an underrated bourbon. But I don't think it's underrated for long.
No, I mean, I've been talking about it the last 2 months. I was lucky enough to have Tim Pearson on the show, one of the co-founders, just an amazing guy, also a musician. We were talking music and talking about the story of it. I mean, you have to respect a company that buys a distillery without any sort of legal precedent to distill in Chattanooga. I mean, that's rock and roll right there. So absolutely love their story, love their whiskey. Chattanooga 111 was in one of my surprises of the year as well in the video I dropped today. Just a delicious, the honey malted barley, the caramel malted barley just balances out the sweetness. It kind of cleans out the rough edges of a younger whiskey. It's sweet. It's like burnt toast with some like honey butter on it. It's just a delicious, delicious whiskey.
They're doing it right. I really do respect what they're doing. What's up next for you?
Let me see. I think I'm running low here on some.
I got 3 left. If you want me to burn through a couple.
Actually, why don't you do one more? I'm going to grab my last one here.
Okay, so, all right. So you wanna ask me like, if I'm down to my last, like, if I was, and this is a very, it wasn't too long ago I was living like this. So, and this is what I bought, and this is one of the things that I was I could afford. And when I tell people that it's my palate calibrator, it's because I'm so familiar with it, and it has not changed in 20 years, at least to my palate. Evan Williams Black Label. You can get this for such a low amount of money. Yes, the bottle and the bond is definitely better, but if you're looking at something that's in that Jim Beam White Label level, Jack Daniel's level, Evan Williams Black Label is the one to me that I know what it is every single time. It's my palate calibrator. And I think it is very, very underrated. And if we look at the totality of bourbon, we all need that one bourbon that we pour with a Coke or a ginger ale. And if you're going down that ubiquitous route, if you need to get something that's perfect with it, I would suggest Evan Williams. It would do a lot for you all. But I will tell you, because we were focusing on bourbon, I chose to not allow Jack Daniels in here. But Jack Daniels would be in that same kind of conversation for me. But Jack Daniels actually is bourbon, but I respect what they put on the label, and I didn't want to have that sidebar conversation. So Evan Williams is the one.
So I'll take your Evan Williams and I'll raise you a 1783.
Ooh, look at that. I love it.
This is, again, it's an 86 proof Evan Williams product. It's not going to blow you away, but I have gotten so many people into drinking bourbon through this bottle. There's just, I don't know, there's a sweetness to it. There's an easy drinking aspect to it that people just take to. This is literally about, I don't know, 18, 20 bucks on the shelf. If you're looking for an easy sipper, I know most bourbon, nerds and, heavy drinkers that, like the higher proof stuff and, the bourbon drinker of today. But there's still people out there that like an easy sipper. And I think this one kind of fits the bill for price. People have a budget. This one, along with your Black Label, I think there's a definite spot for Evan Williams. All the talk goes to the White Label, bottled and bond, but these are still pretty damn good for what they are.
You are damn right they are. You are damn right. And I'll tell you too, 1783 is the one in the lineup I fear is going to get cut.
You think so?
I don't have any evidence to put toward it, but just knowing just studying Heaven Hill over the years, it is not one. 1783 is one of those that's not gotten a lot of love.
Yeah, it hasn't. It's one of those that I see. It doesn't really move. It's always on the shelf, and it is one of those sweeter bourbons, especially from the Evan Williams line. It's not as peanutty as you would think coming from a Heaven Hill. It's a little bit more on the fruit side and the sweet side, which I think people like, but unfortunately, I think it gets overshadowed by a lot of other stuff in the Evan Williams line. Even the regular Black Label that you put up, I think more people are buying that over the 1783.
Yeah, you're right. And if I saw the two together and he was and the coin was right, I'm buying the 1783. But back in the day, when I was, check by check kind of guy, and there might have been a time or two that the check bounced, I was buying Evan Williams Black Label.
There you go.
It was at that point. So that's why that one is always going to be special to me, because it was the one I could afford when I was broke as shit. And coming up to the next one, Wild Turkey 101, to me is very underrated. And I know it has a lot of super fans in the whiskey geek community, but you try to convince a regular consumer to drink Wild Turkey 101. Good luck. They do not look at this brand as something that's special, but I do think it is special. I think it's fantastic. And I will say that the last one on this list, I think is a rising star in the bourbon community, is Penelope Bourbon, They're 4 grain. I think there's a lot of hope here for this distillery. I think they deserve to be in that hunting list. And it's underrated because it's new, it's not familiar with people, and it hasn't won any awards or anything like that to my knowledge. But I put it in my wild card for whiskeys for my wild card bourbon round, and I think it's got a really, really, really nice future. So that'll do it. That'll do it for our underrated bourbons. Now we will have a summary of these. You can find those up on fredminnick.com at some point. Given tomorrow is, I might be able to do it tomorrow. Yeah, I might be able to do it tomorrow. Yeah, maybe do that before we have our stream tomorrow night at 9:00. So let's as we close out. Holy crap, man! We're almost 2 hours into this, brother.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was a kind of easy conversation here. Maybe tomorrow we could do overrated bourbons.
Well, shit. I don't know if we have enough time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if we did overrated bourbons, yeah, I could do overrated bourbons, but some of them too are like good. That's the thing about overrated bourbons, is like they're still actually good, but it's like because that motherfucker over there likes it and that guy there likes it, I don't like it. You know, I there's like this weird psychology. It's like, because that person likes it, I fucking hate that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I keep, you know, I don't want to keep bringing up Blantons, but you know that kind of has that.
I didn't hear you. We haven't talked about Blantons all night, Jason. I don't even know what you're talking about.
We haven't brought it up at all.
No, not at all.
Oh, jeez, what are we doing? We're not doing our job, Fred. So yeah, everyone, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, Fred will be on my channel talking. We'll be coming up with something good to talk about.
But yeah, but I do like overrated. Let's do overrated. Fuck it.
Yeah, let's do overrated.
Let's
Absolutely.
do overrated.
All
right. Just one that I can. I'll do a teaser. 1910, Old Forester 1910 is so overrated. It's so overrated.
So the rule tomorrow is we can't add Blanton to the list.
Well, we have to start it with that.
Okay. We'll just open the live stream and we'll just have a table full of Blantons and then we'll just end it.
We'll be like, most overrated bourbon, Blantons. See you tomorrow.
So there's two things. So Ned Fremick in the chat actually said, so there's a difference between, I think, overrated and overpriced. So I think it'll be a good distinction, because I have my thoughts. I'm curious of what you think is both either overrated or overpriced. Sometimes they're both. Sometimes they're separate.
Well, I have a really unique perspective on that. By the way, you gotta love Ned Fremick. That's a hell of a name. I love it. One of the things that I look at is like, you are taste it blind, because the whiskey don't lie. The whiskey does not lie. And when it's in that glass, you're tasting it blind. You don't know how much it fucking costs. So that's why it's a fun, easy thing for me, is that I can go through a lot of things that I've tasted over the years and just was really low on, and seeing them go, berserk. Unfortunately, unlike this show where we had the bottles, I won't have the bottles. So it'll be something we just talk. I mean, I'll be able to talk about, like the Parker's Heritage 27-year-old sucks so bad, but people, I can pull up like what it goes for in the secondary market or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, we could talk about those bottles too, because there are so many that are on the secondary that are not worth it, going for hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of dollars. So let's do that tomorrow. Let's just shit on the secondary.
Tim Porter here saying no beam unsubscribed. What are you talking about, Tim? What are you talking about? We had all kinds of old granddad in here.
That's right. We had all sorts of old granddad, and I pulled out 2 Knob Creeks. Come on, buddy.
Come on, Tim. I don't think Tim was a subscriber to begin with, but you know. But listen, that was one hell of a time. I've enjoyed all of this. If you all haven't yet, click the subscribe button. Going over to Mash and Drum and make sure you're subscribing there. We're going to have a hell of a time tomorrow. It may or may not take almost 2 hours, but that's how it rolls. What do you say we give folks like 5 more minutes just to give us some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Ask any question you like. We got a little delay with YouTube, of course, but bring them in.
Yeah, the Tim Porter brought up the old tub distiller's cut. Well, you mean the Jim Beam distiller's cut, Tim? Because that was great when it came out. It was a limited release. Not sure how more available it is right now, but it's distiller's cut was one of my favorites.
And Old Tub has fared very nicely this year for both of us. I don't think it's underrated though. Yeah. No,
I don't think it's underrated just because it's a $20 bourbon, and I think that's exactly what it should be. It's perfect where it is.
Yeah, I mean it's exactly right. Thank you very much, Brian, Peter, saying like good show. See you tomorrow. Look forward to it. Kathy, thank you, saying you all rock. Richie asked our favorite bourbon of 2020. I think you can find those on our channels.
Yeah, I haven't released my favorite bourbon of 2020 just yet, but that's gonna be my next video. So keep an eye out.
Giddy up. Rarebird says, "Do I think the new design of 101 will impact sales?" Yes, it always does.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Oakes, thoughts on Old Saint Nick? What do you think?
Way overpriced. You talk about overpriced. That was in one of my disappointments today. The very old Saint Nick 12-year that I bought for $200-something was just a flat mess. That was my worst purchase I made in 2020. I got to try their 17-year-old Lost Barrel, Stitzel Weller stuff that they came out with. That was pretty amazing juice, but their regular stuff they came out with, their 12-year, very small batch, 90.2 proof bourbon was my worst purchase of the year.
Oh my, man, that's not a good association. Sean Bratton asked for me to give my favorite Willie Pratt story. Of course, Willie Pratt, the now deceased master distiller for Michter's. I think the best way to describe my relationship with him is that I was critical of some of his whiskeys, and he never said anything to me. And I had rated some of his whiskeys pretty low, and he treated me like an absolute gentleman. And it was like I never said anything, and that is very rare from a distiller. And we had always had good conversations about fishing, family. He got to meet my youngest child at a very young age, and I always respected Willie for his love for family, but also because of how he always treated me. Like he always treated me with respect, and never like a lot of distillers would just be like, oh hey, we're just trying to get me to write about them. And Willie never gave two shits about what I wrote about. He just cared about me as a person. And I think that's probably the best thing I can say of my memory with him.
So I'm just looking at all the questions coming in.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with them too. When you get in the software, you'll see this when you get an Ecamm Live. You get a little like screen. I'm not very good with this business.
That's a good question. Predictions for 2021. You have any predictions that just if you could think of one that you would think off the top of your head? What do you think?
Yeah,
what do do you think is coming in the world of whiskey in 2021?
I've thrown a few out. I think one of the things that will be new, I think we're going to see some really crazy wonky grain bills. I think you're going to see something like an oat and triticale and corn and spelt. You're going to see like a 5-6 grain release, and hey, I'm all for it. So that's one thing that I can see.
I feel like I think we're going to see some more of the what's the word for them that you call them, the aged cocktails in a bottle.
Oh, barrel aged cocktails.
Yeah, like barrel aged cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see more of those.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing like it in the canned cocktail movement as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a lot of that stuff going on. I've given it's funny. Like in the last 5 days, I've given like 20 different predictions, and so I'm trying to do something new every time someone asks. And I had this ready, Jason. I had it ready for the show in case someone asks. So, but yeah, the chat is definitely humming. I'd say we probably got like 3-4 minutes here left, and
a lot of people are saying that Wilderness Trail wasn't mentioned. I think the secret's out on Wilderness Trail, don't you think?
Yeah, listen, you're not going to hear me say they're underrated. I'm a big fan. Pretty much every bourbon geek is a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
When we say underrated, we mean like we don't feel like people are respecting him. We think Wilderness Trail's getting plenty of respect.
Yeah, Wilderness Trail is definitely getting plenty of respect. I mean, I've been talking about them since day one. I love and anyone that's watched me knows I love their stuff. Thoughts on Basil Hayden 10-year walk away?
That's a no. So, I mean, it is so flavorless for a 10-year-old. It's like, what the fuck did you do to this thing? But here's the thing: it's a top 5 or top 10 seller on Drizzly. So, I mean, Basil Hayden has a fan base. And
they do.
It just ain't me.
It's some of those lower proof bourbon. I feel like I put like Woodford Reserve drinkers in that same context. People that love Woodford Reserve love Woodford Reserve. Mm-hmm. It's a very loyal fan base. I think experienced whiskey drinkers shit on them because they put everything out at 90.4 proof besides the batch proof release, but I think they have a very loyal fan base for whatever reason.
So I was on an airplane one time, and I got upgraded to first class, and this was when I was like, I never got upgraded, and this man across the aisle, I had the window seat, and across the aisle, this man got a Woodford, and he poured Coke in it, and the woman sitting next to me leaned over and says, "You mean to tell me you're going to pour the world's greatest bourbon over Coke? I don't think so." And I looked at her, I was like, okay. Not telling you what I do for a living.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it amazing how those people always find you?
Yeah. Yeah, it is a and I think sometimes too, like when you are in a particular profession, you have an ear for it and you keep an eye out for it. It's like one time I was in LA and I saw 30 people wearing Willet and Woodford and Buffalo Trace hats, and I did a tweet. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, bourbon fashion is taking off. I saw it in LA." It's you just notice things a little differently. So
Scott Hall, favorite Ohio bourbon. Probably it's between the Tom's Foolery that we talked about tonight and also Whiskey War.
Oh, nice.
Whiskey War I like.
Here's a brand for you, Jason, to go hunt. It's called Woodstone Creek. They're out of Cincinnati. They're an OG Ohio distillery. They were distilling in the 90s. They've got 15-year-old single malts and bourbons.
Ooh.
They're not, and they distilled. It's super low proofs, no filtration. So you can see fatty acids in their stuff. So there's some significant flocking. But, that's one to go take a look at. I'll make an introduction for you if you like. You can go.
Yeah, I would love to talk to them. That sounds great.
Yeah.
A lot of questions to you about, was it Blue Run?
Yeah, I tasted them. I'm looking at the bottle right there. I tasted it.
Yeah.
It's
What are your
fine.
thoughts? So that was a what, 15-year? That's Barton juice, isn't it?
I don't think I thought it was 13.
13. I'm sorry, maybe
Yeah,
13.
I'm looking at the bottle. I don't see the age on it, but I feel like it was 13 years old. Yeah, I feel like that was Barton. I tasted it. It was fine, but it was not like I wasn't going woo woo for it or anything like that.
Yeah,
It was just kind of what it is.
All right, yeah. Yeah, this is stuff we can, talk about more tomorrow, but
yeah, I think it's definitely time for us to kind of close it out. We've been on the air for nearly 2 hours minus the 5 minutes of technical difficulties that we had.
yeah, I gotta get my camera worked out for tomorrow. So.
Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yeah. But listen, everybody, if you haven't yet, help us get over that hump on the 400 likes. We're almost there at 398. We've had an incredible following all night. We did reach 600. Our max tonight, I think, was 620, Jason. So I'm very proud of that. Very proud of that. And I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm excited for what's to come with us. I like Minnick and Mash, or Mash and Minnick, whichever way we go with it. I like that. Sounds good. I think we've got something ahead of us here. But everybody, I just want to say thank you so much. And Jason, fucking hell of a time, man. Hell of a time.
Yeah, what can I say, man? I know we waited a while to get, to collaborate here, but this was just a hell of a time, like you said, and I couldn't be more honored to share the screen with you, Fred. I've been obviously reading your books and following you for a long time, way before you had a YouTube channel. So, for me, as a guy that loves history and really appreciates American whiskey, from kind of a super fan to you, I just want to say thanks for what you do for the American whiskey community and the bourbon community, and just want to say thanks. And I cannot wait to collaborate more with you. So appreciate it.
Hell yeah, brother, man. I appreciate that. Cheers to you. What do you got in your glass? What are you toasting here with? We got to have a final toast here.
You know what? I'm gonna pour more of the Michters for Willie. So do a little final toast off here. Why not?
God bless you.
All right.
And by the way, Willie was not a vodka fan, so we can say emphatically, vodka.
He's already the man.
Cheers, brother. Be safe out there, and we'll see you all tomorrow on the Mash and Drum channel. Make sure you're leaving here right now, clicking subscribe. If you're not already one of the subscribers of Mash and Drum, head on over there, and you'll see us tomorrow night. Be safe out there. No licking handrails. No licking trash cans. Remember, vodka sucks unless it's being used for hand sanitizer. But seriously, it does suck.
It does.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.